I'm Ritik and you're watching Live Cricket. So we'll see what happened on day 3 of India versus New Zealand WTC final. So India came into bat and Virat and Rahane were batting. They batted quite beautifully on the previous day. New Zealand bowling was also quite good and the competition was toe to toe. But I think Jameson has improved a lot in his short career, and he was bowling consistently on a particular length and was swinging the ball both the ways. And and if a person can bowl a particular length regularly and can swing both the ways, it becomes very difficult for a batsman to play. And also it forces batsmen, and I think it becomes more important to see the wrist position of the bowler as well. So Virat was still playing decently well, but on one delivery came very sharply in. So in Hindi we use a term that wicket banaya usne. So he literally created the wicket there, and that happens in Test cricket, that if a particular bowler is bowling consistently outswingers, and then one ball came sharply in, and that was what happened with Virat case. So he was consistently bowling outswingers to him, and one delivery pitched onto the good length came sharply in, and he got out LBW. So one thing I've noticed, that the reason why he got out LBW is obviously the ball was pretty good, but I think his trigger movement as well. In his trigger movement, he moves slightly towards his off stump, and his front foot comes slightly across, and whenever a batsman comes across and the delivery which is pitched in towards him gets difficult for him to play, and the chances of LBW becomes quite high. So there are some advantages of such trigger movement as well. If a person is moving towards his off stumps, he can play the ball on fourth or fifth stumps quite easily, but at the same time the balls which will come sharp in becomes difficult to play, and he got out LBW. But it was a decent delivery. And afterwards, I think Rahane and Pant were playing. Pant, I don't know why he played that shot. I think the situation demanded much more maturity from him. He's a terrific player. He plays aggressively, but I think aggressive and the way he played, I think not are the similar terms. We cannot justify aggressiveness with that shot, because the ball was pitched way outside of stump, and I think he shouldn't have attempted to play the ball, and he got out very cheaply. Afterwards, Rahane was playing very maturely and patiently, but I think Wagner was mentally playing with his mind. I think he bowled a short pitch ball which swung away from him because of his action, and he tried to pull it over the fielder at mid wicket. And I think Rahane as well comes into a position from where it is slightly more easy to play on the onside than on offside. So delivery was on outside, and he could have easily back foot punch it or leave it as well. So after he played that pull shot, which I think he didn't connect it well, past the fielder, but didn't carry to the fielder. So on the next ball, Kane Williamson put a fielder on short mid wicket as well as square leg, and he saw that, but again he bowled a delivery there outside of short pitch ball, and I think Rahane again came into a position where where to play the ball on offside could be much more difficult, but he tried to play the ball on the onside and tried to play grounded, but it didn't happen, and he got out on square leg. And I think this was major wicket, and I think this was the fault of Rahane. Ball was not as great, was not a wicket taking delivery, but I think Wagner was mentally playing with the mind of Rahane, and he got his wicket there. But afterwards, I think I was very disappointed by Ashwin and Jadeja, because the way of the dismissal. Ashwin in last 2 to 3 years have quite evolved as a test cricketer, and has improved a lot in his batting, and there's a quite big change in his batting. His stance has changed. His back lift has become quite high now, and he tried to slog Neil Wagner on the second ball, and I don't think it is the right way to play the game. Yes, you have to be aggressive, you have to be dominating, you have to be counter attacking, but he was playing decently well, and he just threw his wicket away on Saudi. And Saudi was bowling pretty good at that point, and he also got beat on outswingers in previous over, and he still tried to drive the ball on the rise. And most importantly, he knew that there's no proper batsman to bat after him, and the situation was quite difficult at that point of time. They were 201 for 7 for 6, and he got out very ordinary by playing a very ordinary shot. And afterwards, I think Jadeja as well. I'll not criticize the bowlers because their job was not to bat, and I think Indian bowlers are not as great a batsmen as New Zealand tailenders are, but Jadeja also got out down the leg, and I think this they are 40 to 45 runs short in the target, but the target is still decent. It is a fighting fighting score, but I think they could have managed to score slightly more. I think 250 would have been a great score, but they got out for 217. So India's lower order has contributed on an average 98 runs, which is very decent. But these are the stats normally when they have played in India. I think there is a margin here, because New Zealand, if I compare to New Zealand, England, or Australia, their lower order contributes decently well, and I think sometimes it becomes a reason. It becomes a difference between victory and loss. So I think Indian batting could have been much more impressive, could have been much more mature, but New Zealand, but full credits to New Zealand bowling. I think Bolt as well as Saudi, Jamieson was exceptional, no doubt in that. But all four of the bowlers were bowling, have not bowled quite fast, and they were regularly bowling at 132, 136, 137, not more than that. But they were able to swing the ball regularly and from good positions, and that made very difficult for Indians to play. And I think I was quite impressed by Bolt as well. One catch was dropped off his bowling by Saudi, and Jamieson as well took 5 wickets. So I think New Zealand bowling has been quite good, and I've noticed one thing with New Zealand is that New Zealand is not as strong in the under 19 level, but on the international level, at the international level, they are quite lethal. And I must say that whatever happens between that phase should be very motivating for other nations as well, because there's such a drastic change in the national team of under 19 and the international team of the New Zealand. So I think it is a very small country, but have contributed a lot to the cricket, and they are consistently doing well in this format of the game as well. So at the end of the Indian innings, I think New Zealand were way ahead, and looking at the previous day, bounced back pretty strongly. But afterwards as well, Indian bowling was quite disciplined initially. I think Shami was extremely lethal. Latham and Devon Conway were quite lucky that ball didn't carry to at gully. So I think were the ones which were getting a slight swing. Bumrah, because of his space and because of his release point, I think didn't get a lot of swing, but the pace at which he was bowling and the line and length was making it difficult for the Kiwis to play. But Latham was leaving the ball exceptionally well, and Devon Conway is on another level. I think he's playing his third test, that too WTC final, and he has played so maturely. He scored more than 50 runs at the end of the day. And didn't look and I didn't saw him in trouble at any point of time, as well as Tom Latham looked impatient to me in the later phase of his innings, and I think Ashwin was bowling to him in the third session, and Ashwin put a fielder on silly mid-off and a leg slip as well. So if a fielder is placed at silly mid-off, sorry. So it means that the bowler is saying that you have to play the shot, you have to play aggressively, and you have to play the shot above that fielder. And he was regularly giving flight to the ball, and it becomes quite tempting for a batsman, and batsmen many a times fall into the trap, and that's exactly happened with Tom Latham. So he was consistently giving flight to the ball, and Tom Latham tried to hit the ball over the fielder, and he got out at silly mid-off. And I think that was an important breakthrough. The partnership was building quite strongly, and they were quite patient and disciplined, and they were not giving any chance to Indian bowlers. But New Zealand has also performed extremely well, and they are, I think, way ahead in this test right now. Afterwards, I think Devin Conway also got out at on the onside by Shan Sharma. And I've seen him, his dismissal in the second test against England was quite similar. The balls which are pitched on his leg, he becomes slightly impatient after a certain period of time, and he tries to flick it hard. And I've seen he has gotten out in on such deliveries, and he got out on the onside there. But I think both the dismissals were the fault of New Zealand batsmen, because it tested the patience of the player, and India won that mental game there. So if I have to see the position of both the teams, I think New Zealand are slightly ahead, 101 for 2. So I think they are slightly ahead in this test match right now. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Fingers crossed.